I'm Trina, 35 years old, and I was just checking my bank app during lunch when I saw it. A charge for $3,842.20 from Party Paradise Supplies. My coffee nearly spilled as I called my sister Melody. She answered casually saying, "Oh yeah, the family vote about Tyler's party." "What vote?" I asked. "The one where everyone agreed you'd pay since you're doing so well at your new job." I wasn't even at Sunday dinner when this supposed vote happened. Before I continue this shocking story about how my own family betrayed me, let me ask, where are you watching from today? If family drama stories help you feel less alone in your struggles, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Trust me, what happens next will make you grateful for whatever family issues you might have because this gets so much worse. Let me back up and explain my situation because understanding my background makes this betrayal even more painful. I'm 35, single, and just got promoted to marketing director at a tech company after struggling for over a decade in low-paying jobs. This promotion meant I finally broke through to a salary of $85,000 a year, which might sound like a lot, but in San Francisco, it's really just enough to live decently. After years in a cramped studio apartment with questionable plumbing and neighbors who thought 3 a.m. was the perfect time for drum practice, I finally moved to a one-bedroom apartment last month. I'm still sleeping on an air mattress because I'm slowly furnishing it, prioritizing necessities like a refrigerator and basic kitchen supplies over bedroom furniture. What makes this financial violation so infuriating is that I've been helping my family financially for years, even when I was making $30,000 annually and eating ramen 5 nights a week. My mother, Diane, raised us as a single parent after Dad left when I was 12, and I always felt this obligation to help once I started working. My siblings include Melody, who's 37 and has 3 kids, including Tyler, my sister Cassandra, who's 33 and married with 2 kids, and my brother Jerome, who's 29 and recently married. Despite being the second youngest, I've somehow always been the one everyone turned to for money. When I called the credit card company, they confirmed the charge was processed yesterday at Party Paradise Supplies. The customer service rep read me the itemized receipt, and my jaw dropped with each line item. Venue rental at Enchanted Garden Events for $800. Catering from Bella's Bistro for 150 guests at $20 per person. DJ services for $500. Custom decorations package for $400. 3-tier custom dinosaur cake for $350. The list went on, including party favors, balloon arch photo booth rental, and even valet parking service. I immediately called my mother, trying to control my shaking hands. She answered with her usual cheerful voice like nothing was wrong. When I asked about the party charge, she said, "Oh, sweetie, didn't Melody tell you about the family decision? We all agreed that since you're finally making good money, you should sponsor Tyler's 10th birthday party. It's such a milestone birthday, and you know how much that boy loves you." I reminded her that I wasn't at Sunday dinner because I was working on a major presentation for Monday morning. She brushed it off, saying, "Well, we voted and everyone agreed you'd want to help. Jerome even said you'd mentioned wanting to do something special for Tyler." That was a complete lie. While I love my nephew, I'd never promised anything beyond maybe taking him to a movie and buying him a gift. I called Jerome next, and his response was different from Mom's version. He sounded uncomfortable admitting that yes, there was a discussion, but he actually argued against involving me without asking first. However, he was overruled by Mom and my sisters, who insisted I'd be happy to help, and that asking would just stress me out unnecessarily. They apparently spent 2 hours planning this elaborate party, using my recent promotion as justification for the expense level. The real knife twist came when I called Melody. She was irritated that I was making such a big deal about it. "Trina, you've been telling us about your promotion and new apartment. Cassandra saw your LinkedIn post about being grateful for your success. We figured it was time you gave back to the family that supported you all these years. Plus, you used to say that when you made it big, you'd help us more. This party is for Tyler, your nephew. Don't you love him?" When I asked how they even had my credit card information, she casually admitted she'd saved it from last month when I helped her buy groceries because her account was overdrawn. I'd given her my card information for a one-time purchase of $200 worth of food for her family, and she'd promised to delete it afterward. Instead, she kept it and used it for this massive party expense without even a text message to ask permission. I pulled up my laptop and started searching for information about this party. What I found made my anger multiply. They had created a Facebook event page calling it Tyler's Epic 10th Birthday Bash, scheduled for next Saturday. The venue photos showed an upscale event space with gardens and a pool. The party description promised pony rides, a bounce house, face-painting balloon animals, a magic show, and appearances by costumed characters. They'd invited not just family and Tyler's friends, but also their coworkers, church friends, and seemingly everyone they'd ever met. The RSVP list showed 137 people confirmed already. My hands trembled as I scrolled through months of family group chat messages that I'd been excluded from. Cassandra had shared screenshots in the event page, showing conversations where they discussed party planning. Going back 3 months right after my promotion announcement, they started discussing how to approach me for money. My mother's messages were calculating and cold. She wrote that Trina finally has real money. Now we need to act fast before she gets stingy like people do when they come into wealth. The timing has to be right, and we need to present a united front. I left work early, telling my boss I had a family emergency. The 40-minute drive to my mother's house gave me time to process the violation, but it only made me angrier. These people who claimed to love me had conspired to steal nearly $4,000 from me. They'd planned for months, held secret meetings, and executed their scheme with the precision of professional con artists. The worst part was how they'd used my nephew as a weapon, knowing I'd have a harder time saying no if it involved Tyler. When I arrived at Mom's house, I wasn't surprised to find everyone already there. Melody's car was in the driveway along with Cassandra's minivan. Even Jerome's truck was parked on the street. They'd obviously been warned I was coming and had assembled for damage control. I walked in without knocking, finding them in the living room, acting like it was a normal family gathering. Tyler was playing video games while the adults sat around with coffee and cookies like they hadn't just committed credit card fraud. Mom stood up with a big smile, opening her arms for a hug. "There's our successful girl. We were just talking about you and how proud we are. Come sit down, I made your favorite snickerdoodles." I stepped back from her attempted embrace and demanded an explanation for the theft. Yes, I used the word theft, which made everyone shift uncomfortably. Melody immediately went on the offensive. "How dare you call it theft? We're family. Everything we have, we share. You wouldn't even have that fancy degree without our support." I asked her to specify exactly what support she meant. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Cassandra jumped in with, "Remember when you stayed here for 2 weeks during college, when your roommate situation fell through, and Mom made you meals when you were studying for finals? And I let you borrow my car that one time to get to your interview." These crumbs of basic family courtesy were apparently worth nearly $4,000 in their minds. The truth about my college years was far different from their revisionist history. I worked 3 part-time jobs while taking a full course load. I stayed on their couch for exactly 2 weeks between apartments, and during that time, Mom charged me rent. The meals during finals consisted of leftover casserole twice, and both times she complained about feeding an extra mouth. Cassandra's car loan was for 1 day, and she demanded $20 for gas for a 10-mile round trip. Meanwhile, they'd mocked my ambitions, constantly calling me uppity for pursuing a marketing degree and saying I thought I was better than them. Jerome finally spoke up, his voice quiet but honest. "This isn't right, and you all know it. We ambushed her and stole from her. Mom, you literally planned this like a heist." He turned to me with apologetic eyes. "I tried to stop them, Trina. I told them to just ask you directly, but Mom said you'd been programmed by corporate America to be selfish, and we needed to act for the greater family good." The room erupted as Mom and my sisters turned on Jerome, calling him weak and a traitor. I pulled out my phone and showed them my bank account, something I'd never done before. "You see this? After paying rent, student loans, car payment, and basic expenses, I have about $800 left each month. I'm not rich. I'm finally stable after years of struggle. This party cost represents 5 months of my disposable income. 5 months of saving for furniture, for an emergency fund, for maybe taking a vacation for the first time in 6 years. But you all decided I don't deserve those things because Tyler needs a party that costs more than some people's cars. Melody stood up, getting in my face. You always were selfish, even as a kid. Now you make more than any of us and want to hoard it all. What kind of aunt denies her nephew a birthday party? Tyler deserves this. He's been through so much with the divorce and everything. Don't you want him to be happy? Don't you want him to have what those rich kids at his school have? She was practically screaming, using emotional manipulation like a weapon. The mention of her divorce was particularly rich. Melody had cheated on her husband with 3 different men, got caught when she forgot to log out of her dating apps on their shared tablet. Her ex-husband had been more than generous in the divorce, giving her the house and paying substantial child support. But she'd blown through the settlement money on designer bags and weekend trips to Vegas while claiming poverty to anyone who'd listen. Tyler and his siblings had everything they needed from their father, but Melody always wanted more. Cassandra piled on with her own sob story about how hard it was raising kids on her husband Marcus's salary as a plumber, which would have been more convincing if I hadn't seen her Instagram posts from their recent Cabo vacation and her new Louis Vuitton purse. She worked part-time at a boutique by choice, not necessity, spending most of her earnings on herself while complaining about the cost of children's necessities. Just last month, she'd asked me for money for school supplies, which I later learned went toward her monthly Botox appointments. I looked each of them in the eye and announced I was canceling the charges. The credit card company had already opened a fraud investigation, and I would fully cooperate. The room exploded into chaos. Mom started crying, but they were manipulative tears I'd seen too many times before. This will ruin Tyler's birthday. Everyone already knows about the party. We'll be humiliated in front of the whole community. How could you do this to us? Your own family. Tyler looked up from his game, clearly confused and upset by the yelling. I knelt down beside him and spoke gently. Hey buddy, I'm sorry about all this noise. I love you very much and we'll still celebrate your birthday. How about next weekend, just you and me go to that arcade you love, and then get pizza? His face lit up for a moment before Melody yanked him away from me. Don't you dare try to turn my son against me. You're ruining his special day because you're a selfish witch who cares more about money than family. I stood up, feeling a strength I'd never had before in this house. I'm not ruining anything. You committed fraud. You stole from me. You planned this for months without any consideration for my consent or financial situation. That's not what family does. Family asks. Family respects boundaries. Family doesn't conspire to commit crimes against each other. I'm done being your personal ATM. I've given you thousands over the years while living in poverty myself, and it's never enough. It will never be enough because you don't see me as family. You see me as a resource to exploit. Mom's tears dried, instantly replaced by cold fury. If you cancel this party, you're out of this family. You'll never see Tyler or any of the kids again. We'll tell everyone what kind of person you really are. A selfish, money-obsessed woman who forgot where she came from. You think you're so much better than us now with your fancy job and apartment? Well, we don't need you. But you'll regret this when you're old and alone with no family because you chose money over blood. The threats started before I even reached my car. My phone buzzed continuously as I drove home, messages flooding in from every family member and their extended network. I pulled over at a coffee shop to read them, needing to see what I was dealing with. The family group chat I'd been excluded from was suddenly including me, and the messages were vicious. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were calling me heartless. Aunts who'd never remembered my birthday were lecturing me about family values. Church friends of my mother's who'd never met me were praying for my soul and my selfishness. Melody had already posted on Facebook, twisting the story beyond recognition. According to her version, I'd promised to pay for Tyler's party months ago, gotten her hopes up, let them plan everything, then cruelly yanked it away at the last minute because I decided I needed the money for designer clothes. She posted pictures of Tyler looking sad, claiming he was crying because Auntie Trina broke her promise. The comments were brutal, calling me names I won't repeat, and making threats about teaching me a lesson about family loyalty. I sat in my car for an hour, watching the hate multiply across social media. Cassandra joined in with her own post about how some people forget their roots when they get a little success. She shared old photos from our childhood strategically chosen to show moments when the family had included me in activities, conveniently leaving out all context. There was the Christmas photo, where I looked happy, not showing that I'd bought all the presents with my babysitting money. The birthday party image where they'd thrown me a celebration, not mentioning I'd paid for everything and cooked all the food myself. By the time I got home, there were 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. I started blocking numbers, but they kept coming from new ones. Extended family members I'd forgotten existed were reaching out to shame me. My mother left a voicemail that was pure emotional terrorism. 23 years I spent raising you, sacrificing everything, and this is how you repay me. I should have known you'd turn out like your father, selfish and cruel. Don't bother coming to my funeral because you're dead to me now. Tyler asked why you hate him. I hope you're satisfied with breaking a child's heart. I called my best friend Keisha, needing someone sane to talk to. She'd witnessed years of my family's treatment and had often warned me about enabling them. When I told her what happened, she wasn't surprised. Girl, I've been waiting for you to wake up for years. Remember when you gave them your entire tax refund because your mom claimed she couldn't pay utilities? Then she posted pictures from that cruise 2 weeks later. Or when Melody needed emergency car repairs. But you saw her driving a different car entirely the next month. They've been playing you since day one. She was right. The pattern was so clear now. Every few months there was a crisis that required my money. Someone was always sick, broke, or facing some catastrophe that only my cash could solve. I'd given them at least $30,000 over the past 5 years, probably more if I really added it up. Meanwhile, I'd worn the same work clothes until they literally fell apart, skipped meals to save money, and postponed medical care because I couldn't afford the copays. All while they lived better than I did, taking vacations and buying luxuries while crying poverty. The next morning, I went to the police station to file a fraud report. The officer who took my statement was sympathetic, but not surprised. You'd be shocked how often we see this, he said. Family members are the most common perpetrators of financial fraud because they know their victims are less likely to prosecute. They count on guilt and manipulation to get away with it. The fact that they planned this for months and documented it in writing actually helps your case. This is clearly premeditated fraud, not a misunderstanding. I provided all the evidence, including screenshots of their planning messages, the Facebook event page, and Melody's admission that she'd saved my credit card information without permission. The officer said it was one of the clearest cases of credit card fraud he'd seen. The challenge would be whether the district attorney would prosecute given the family relationship, but the evidence was definitely strong enough for charges. I left with a case number and a sick feeling in my stomach, knowing I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. By afternoon, word had spread that I'd gone to the police. The explosion was nuclear. Melody showed up at my workplace screaming in the lobby. She's trying to put me in jail. Her own sister over money. I have 3 kids who need their mother, and she's trying to destroy our lives. Security rushed to intercept her as she tried to get past reception. My coworkers were stunned watching this well-dressed woman completely lose her mind in our professional environment. She had to be physically escorted out while threatening to sue me, the company, and everyone who stood in her way. My boss called me into his office afterward. I was mortified, ready to be fired for bringing drama to work. Instead, he surprised me with compassion. I overheard enough to understand the situation. Take the rest of the day off and work from home tomorrow if you need to. We've all had family issues, though. Yours seem particularly challenging. If you need building security to walk you to your car for a while, just let HR know. And if you need any documentation for legal proceedings about the harassment here, we'll provide it. That evening, my mother arrived at my apartment with Tyler in tow. She'd clearly coached him on what to say because the normally cheerful boy looked at me with sad eyes and said, "Aunt Trina, why don't you want me to have a birthday party?" All my friends were excited to come. Now they'll think I'm poor and laugh at me. It was cruel manipulation using a child as a weapon. I wanted to explain the truth but couldn't burden a 10-year-old with adult problems. Instead, I knelt down and hugged him. "Tyler, I love you so much, and you're going to have a wonderful birthday. Sometimes adults have disagreements about money, but that has nothing to do with how much I care about you. How about we plan something special, just you and me? We could go to the science museum you love or take a trip to the beach or whatever you want." His face brightened for a moment before my mother pulled him away. "Don't try to confuse him with your lies," she hissed. "He knows what you did. Everyone knows. You're going to be alone forever, Trina. No man will want a woman who betrays her own family. No friends will stick by someone so selfish. You'll die alone in that apartment with your money, and no one will even notice you're gone for weeks. We were the only people who really loved you, and you threw us away for $4,000. I hope it was worth it." As they left, Tyler looked back at me with confusion. He didn't understand why the adults were fighting, why his aunt, who'd always been kind to him, was suddenly the villain in his mother's story. I wanted to run after him to explain everything, but I knew that would only traumatize him more. Instead, I went inside and cried for the first time since this all started. Not because of my family's cruelty, but because they'd put an innocent child in the middle of their scheme. The next morning brought new challenges. The credit card company had reversed the charges, but Party Paradise Supplies was now threatening to sue Melody for the money. She'd signed contracts in her name, assuming my credit card would cover everything. When the payment was canceled, she became liable for the full amount. The irony was delicious until I realized this would only fuel more family hatred toward me. Sure enough, within hours, I was getting messages about how I was destroying Melody's credit and financial future. Cassandra's husband Marcus called me that afternoon. His voice was tired and apologetic. "Trina, I need to tell you something. I've been watching this unfold and I can't stay quiet anymore. They've been planning this since the day you announced your promotion. There's a group chat I'm in where they literally strategized how to get money from you. Your mom called it Operation Family Fund and assigned everyone roles. I have screenshots of everything. They planned multiple schemes to get at least $20,000 from you this year." My hands shook as he sent me screenshot after screenshot. The messages went back 3 months and revealed a shocking level of calculation. My mother had created a spreadsheet estimating my take-home pay and expenses, concluding I had at least $2,000 monthly to spare. They'd planned fake emergencies, including Cassandra's supposed need for dental surgery, Jerome's fictional car breakdown, and Mom's manufactured roof repair crisis. The birthday party was just the opening move in a longer game. One message from my mother made my blood run cold. She wrote, "Remember, we need to space these out so she doesn't get suspicious. Start with the birthday party because she can't say no to the kids. Then Cassandra's dental emergency next month. Jerome, you're up in June with car trouble. I'll save the roof for August when it's hot and she'll feel guilty about me suffering without AC. By Christmas, we should have at least $15,000 between us. More if we play our cards right." Melody had responded with pure greed. "Why stop at 15? She's making $85,000. After taxes, that's like 60. She can afford way more. We should be getting at least $1,000 a month from her. It's only fair after all we did for her." Cassandra had agreed, adding, "Plus, she owes us for emotional support all those years she was crying about being broke. We listened to her complain for hours. That's worth something." The most shocking messages were the ones where they mocked me. Melody wrote, "Remember when she gave us her entire tax refund because Mom said the power was getting shut off. We went to that nice steakhouse that night, and Cassandra shared that she still talks about saving money by meal prepping. Meanwhile, I'm getting my nails done weekly with the money she gives me for the kids' activities." Even Jerome, who I thought was on my side, had participated, writing she's book smart but street stupid. Still falls for every sob story. Marcus continued explaining why he was telling me everything. "I'm filing for divorce. This isn't the woman I married, or maybe I just didn't see who she really was. but I can't be part of this anymore. They've been bleeding you dry while living better than you. Did you know the Cabo trip was partially funded by money you gave Cassandra for the kids' school supplies, or that your mom used your Christmas gift money to get cosmetic procedures? They brag about it like it's clever instead of cruel. I asked why Jerome had seemed sympathetic during the confrontation if he'd been part of the planning. Marcus sighed. He grew a conscience at the last minute but was too weak to actually stop it. He's torn between guilt and fear of being cut off from the family. Your mom has them all terrified of exile. She rules through manipulation and threats of abandonment. It's sick, but it's effective. Even I fell for it, initially staying quiet to keep the peace. That afternoon, I received a call from the venue threatening legal action if someone didn't pay for the reserved date. The party was supposed to be in 5 days, and they'd turned away other bookings. I explained the situation, and while they were sympathetic, they still needed payment or would pursue collection. I gave them Melody's contact information and the police report number, washing my hands of the situation. Within an hour, Melody was blowing up my phone with threats about ruining her life and her children's future. The situation escalated when my mother recruited what I call her flying monkeys. People from her church and community who only knew her version of events. I started receiving calls from pastors, church elders, and community leaders, lecturing me about honoring thy mother and the importance of family. One particularly bold church lady showed up at my apartment building trying to ambush me in the parking lot to pray over my selfish soul. Building security had to intervene when she wouldn't leave. My mother had crafted a masterful sob story for public consumption. According to her, I'd always been difficult and ungrateful, but she'd loved me anyway. She'd sacrificed everything as a single mother going without so her children could have better. Now that one child had finally made it, I'd turned my back on the family that made my success possible. She conveniently left out that she'd received child support from our father, worked a good government job with benefits, and had always prioritized her own wants over our needs. 3 days before the party date, things reached a breaking point. Melody, desperate to save face and avoid financial ruin, filed a false CPS report claiming I'd been inappropriate with Tyler. She alleged I'd tried to bribe him to turn against his mother and had made threats about his safety. It was a nuclear option that showed just how far she'd fallen. The social worker who investigated was professional, but clearly saw through the false allegations, especially when Tyler cheerfully told them I was his favorite aunt who always read him stories and helped with homework. The false report backfired spectacularly. Not only was it quickly dismissed, but it gave me grounds for a restraining order. My attorney, who I'd hired to deal with the escalating harassment, fast-tracked the paperwork. Within 48 hours, I had temporary restraining orders against Melody and my mother, preventing them from coming near my home or workplace. The judge was particularly concerned about the workplace harassment and the use of a child in their schemes. Marcus met me at a coffee shop to share more evidence, looking relieved to finally unburden himself. He'd brought printed copies of messages going back not just months, but years. The rabbit hole went deeper than I'd imagined. My family had been systematically exploiting me since I got my first real job at 22. They'd shared strategies for manipulating me, celebrated their successes in taking my money, and even competed over who could get the most from me each year. One conversation from 2 years ago made me physically ill. My mother had written Trina's getting a raise next month according to her company's LinkedIn announcements. Time to have another crisis. Who needs money most right now? Melody had responded. I'll take this one. I'll say Tyler needs therapy for anxiety. She can't say no to mental health stuff for the kids. Cassandra had chimed in with save some for me. I want to redo my kitchen backsplash. I'll say it's for safety reasons, like the old one has mold or something. The casual cruelty in planning fake mental health issues for children to manipulate money from me was staggering. But it explained so much. Tyler's therapy that I'd paid for, he'd never attended a single session. The money had gone to Melody's shopping addiction. Cassandra's mold problem that required expensive remediation, complete fiction. The kitchen renovation I'd partially funded was purely cosmetic. Every emergency, every crisis, every tearful phone call had been orchestrated. Marcus showed me a spreadsheet Cassandra had created tracking what she called the Trina Fund. Over 5 years, they'd extracted nearly $40,000 from me through various schemes. The spreadsheet had columns for date amount, stated reason, actual use, and success rate. They'd rated each manipulation tactic's effectiveness. Apparently, anything involving the children had a 95% success rate. Health scares came in second at 88%. Basic household emergencies were lower at 72% because I'd started asking for receipts. The actual uses column revealed the depth of their deception. Money for Jerome's textbooks went to concert tickets. Funds for Mom's medications paid for a cruise. Cash for Melody's car repairs bought designer purses. They'd lived well on my guilt and misplaced sense of obligation while I ate rice and beans shopped at thrift stores and delayed my own medical care. One entry showed $500 I'd sent for Cassandra's daughter's broken arm copay. The actual use spa weekend with friends. Marcus then revealed something that changed my perspective on everything. Your dad didn't just leave Trina. Your mom drove him out with the same tactics she uses on everyone. He tried to maintain contact with you kids, but she poisoned you against him with lies. He paid child support faithfully and tried to see you, but she made it impossible. He finally gave up when she threatened to accuse him of abuse if he didn't disappear. I know because Cassandra told me one night when she was drunk. Your mom bragged about it like it was clever. This revelation shattered one of my foundational beliefs. I'd spent my entire adult life trying to make up for my father's abandonment, feeling obligated to help because Mom had struggled alone. But she hadn't struggled. She'd thrived on the drama and control. The child support had been substantial, and she'd worked a good job. We'd lived modestly, not because of poverty, but because she hoarded money while crying poor. The same pattern she'd taught my siblings to use on me. I thought about reaching out to my father, but Marcus delivered more difficult news. He passed away 3 years ago. He left letters for all of you with his lawyer, but your mother intercepted them. Cassandra found them in your mom's closet and showed me. He loved you all and regretted not fighting harder to stay in your lives. He even left small inheritances, but your mother kept that quiet and cashed the checks herself. I can try to get copies of the letters if you want. The betrayal kept compounding. Not only had my mother stolen my father from me, with lies she'd stolen his final words, and a financial gift he'd wanted me to have. I did quick math and realized the inheritance would have been enough for a down payment on a condo, something I'd dreamed about for years. Instead, it had likely funded one of Mom's many vacations or home improvements she'd claimed were emergencies. Marcus continued with one final revelation. The birthday party scheme. It was supposed to be a test. If you paid without question, they planned to escalate dramatically. Melody was going to claim she needed surgery and couldn't work for 6 months. Your mom was going to have a heart episode requiring expensive treatments. Cassandra was planning a fake home invasion story where they'd need to move and required deposit money. They estimated they could get $50,000 from you within a year using these tactics. I sat in that coffee shop feeling like my entire life had been built on lies. Every sacrifice I'd made, every check I'd written, every time I'd gone without so they could have more, it had all been based on elaborate deceptions. They'd seen my love and generosity not as gifts to cherish, but as weaknesses to exploit. The family I'd tried so hard to support had been nothing more than a group of con artists who happened to share my DNA. Armed with all the evidence Marcus had provided, I made a decision that would change everything. I created a comprehensive document with every screenshot, every financial record, every lie exposed. Then I sent it to everyone in our extended family network, the same people who'd been harassing me based on my mother's lies. The email subject line was simple: the truth about the birthday party and years of deception. The response was immediate and varied. Some family members were horrified and apologized for their harsh messages. Others refused to believe it, claiming I'd fabricated everything out of spite. A few admitted they'd suspected something was off, but hadn't wanted to get involved. The most interesting responses came from those who'd been victims of similar schemes. Two cousins revealed my mother had borrowed money from them years ago for my supposed college expenses. Money I'd never seen because I'd paid my own way entirely. My phone rang constantly as the family network exploded with infighting. Some sided with me, others with my mother and sisters. The birthday party became a dividing line in the extended family. Those who'd experienced their own manipulation from my mother supported me. Those who benefited from her schemes or feared becoming targets themselves rallied to her defense. The family that had seemed so united in attacking me was fracturing under the weight of exposed lies. Melody, facing financial ruin from the party venue threats and social humiliation from the canceled elaborate celebration, violated the restraining order by showing up at my apartment building. She was arrested in the parking lot while screaming about how I'd destroyed her life. The arrest became another piece of family drama, with some claiming I'd gone too far, and others pointing out she'd brought it on herself. Her children were temporarily placed with their father, who'd been trying to get more custody anyway. My mother, ever the strategist, tried a different approach. She began posting old family photos on Facebook with captions about better times when family meant something. She shared pictures of my college graduation where they'd attended but conveniently didn't mention I'd paid for their tickets and dinner. She posted images from Christmases past, not noting that I'd bought most of the presents despite being the broke college student. It was a masterclass in manipulation designed to make me look like the villain who'd destroyed a loving family. But I was done playing defense. I started my own social media campaign, posting receipts both literal and figurative. I shared the spreadsheet tracking their thefts. I posted screenshots of their planning messages. Most importantly, I shared my bank statements showing how I'd lived in poverty while funding their comfortable lives. The narrative began to shift as people saw the full picture. Comments changed from attacking me to questioning how my family could be so cruel. Jerome finally reached out, asking to meet in person. He looked terrible, clearly torn between family loyalty and guilt. I know I was part of it, and I'm sorry. Mom made it seem normal, like this was just how families worked. She always said you'd volunteered to be the provider since you were the smart one with potential. I was young and stupid and greedy. I knew it was wrong but went along anyway. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I see it now. I asked him about the vote that started this whole crisis. He laughed bitterly. There was no vote. Mom just announced you'd pay and everyone agreed. I said it was wrong to not ask you, and she said I was being ungrateful. That you owed us for all the stress of watching you succeed while we struggled. She made it sound like your success was an insult to the rest of us, like you'd abandoned the family by doing better. It was sick, but she's been saying stuff like that for years, and we all just accepted it. He revealed more about our mother's mindset that explained so much. She sees successful people as obligated to carry everyone else. When Dad left, she decided he'd abandoned his duty to provide for all of us forever. When you started doing well, she transferred that obligation to you. In her mind, you're not an individual with your own life. You're a resource that belongs to the family. She genuinely believes she's entitled to your money because she gave birth to you. It's twisted, but she's convinced herself it's normal. A week later, as the canceled party date approached, the family war reached its peak. Melody, out on bail and facing criminal charges for violating the restraining order, sent a final message through a mutual friend. She wanted me to know Tyler was being bullied at school because everyone knew about the canceled party. She blamed me for his suffering, said I'd marked him as the poor kid whose family couldn't afford a birthday party. It was one last attempt at manipulation, using her son's pain as a weapon. I reached out to Tyler's father, who confirmed the bullying was real, but not for the reasons Melody claimed. Kids were teasing Tyler because his mother had been arrested, not because of a party. He assured me Tyler was getting counseling and understood none of this was his fault. He also thanked me for exposing Melody's lies, as it was helping his custody case. He promised to let Tyler know Aunt Trina still loved him, and that adult problems had nothing to do with their relationship. The birthday party date came and went without celebration. Melody spent it in court dealing with the venue's lawsuit. My mother spent it calling relatives trying to shore up support. Cassandra spent it moving out of the house she shared with Marcus. And I spent it in my therapist's office, beginning the long process of understanding how I'd been programmed from childhood to be the family sacrifice, the one who gave until there was nothing left. 3 months after the birthday party disaster, my life looked completely different. The restraining orders had been made permanent after Melody's arrest, and my mother's continued harassment through third parties. The criminal fraud case was moving forward, though I doubted serious jail time would result. The real punishment was social consequences and financial ruin as their schemes unraveled without their primary funding source. The family that had lived well on my suffering was learning what it meant to actually struggle. My therapy sessions revealed years of conditioning I hadn't recognized. My therapist helped me understand that I'd been trained from childhood to seek approval through giving. Every time I'd received a scrap of affection or praise, it had been tied to what I could provide. My mother had created a dynamic where love was transactional, and I'd internalized that my worth came from my usefulness to others. Breaking that programming was harder than cutting off contact. Jerome had genuinely changed, working his own therapy and reaching out periodically to check on me. He'd gotten a second job to pay back what he'd taken over the years, though I told him I didn't want the money. What I wanted was a real relationship built on mutual respect, not financial exploitation. We started meeting for coffee monthly, slowly building something authentic. He shared how our mother's manipulation had affected him too, creating a deep sense of inadequacy that he'd masked with false bravado. Marcus and I developed an unexpected friendship. His divorce from Cassandra was messy, but he remained committed to protecting his kids from the toxic dynamics. He shared custody and worked hard to teach them about healthy relationships and boundaries. Through him, I maintained a connection to my nieces who were too young to understand the full situation, but old enough to know their aunt loved them. He brought them to visit monthly, and we built relationships separate from their mother's influence. Tyler's situation improved dramatically. His father got primary custody after Melody's arrest, and financial irresponsibility came to light. On his actual birthday, 3 months after the party fiasco, his dad let me take him to the Science Museum, as I had originally offered. Tyler confided that he'd never wanted a huge party anyway. Mom said I did, but I just wanted to go camping with my friends. The party was all her idea. She kept talking about showing everyone how important we were. It broke my heart to realize even the children had been props in their schemes. 6 months later, I achieved something I'd dreamed about but never thought possible while supporting my family. I closed on a small condo using the down payment I'd saved by not funding their lifestyles. The day I got my keys, I sat on the floor of my empty living room and cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that I was finally free. Every dollar I earned was mine to allocate. Every choice about spending was based on my needs and wants, not manipulated guilt. My career flourished without the constant stress of family financial crises. I earned another promotion and was headhunted by a larger company offering a 30% salary increase. During negotiations, I confidently asked for what I was worth, something I'd never have done while believing I didn't deserve success. The new position came with better benefits and the opportunity to mentor young professionals. I found purpose in helping others navigate their careers without the exploitation I'd experienced. I volunteered with a financial literacy nonprofit, sharing my story to help others recognize financial abuse. The number of people who related to my experience was staggering. Family financial exploitation was far more common than I'd realized, but shame kept victims silent. By speaking openly, I helped others recognize the patterns and find strength to set boundaries. One young woman told me my story saved her from giving her inheritance to manipulative siblings who'd convinced her she owed them for their sacrifices. A year after the birthday party incident, I received a letter from my mother through her lawyer. She was facing bankruptcy after the party venue won their judgment against her and Melody. Multiple family members were suing her for unpaid loans they'd given based on her lies about helping me through school. Her house of cards had collapsed without my money to sustain it. The letter was one last manipulation attempt, claiming she was sorry and wanted to reconcile, but needed just a small loan to get back on her feet. I didn't respond. The woman who'd stolen my father my inheritance and decades of financial security while claiming to love me didn't deserve another second of my time. But I did use the letter in therapy to process the grief of losing the mother I'd wished for, but never had. My therapist helped me understand that I was mourning the death of an illusion, not a real relationship. The mother I'd tried so hard to please had never existed. Melody eventually pled guilty to fraud charges and received probation and community service. She lost her children in the custody battle and moved in with our mother. The two of them fed off each other's bitterness, posting periodic social media rants about ungrateful children and the breakdown of family values. Their circle of supporters dwindled as more people recognized their patterns. Even the church friends who'd initially supported them distanced themselves after being asked for loans that would never be repaid. Cassandra tried to rebuild her life post-divorce, but struggled without Marcus's stability and my financial support. She reached out once asking to reconcile, but her apology was hollow, focused more on her current struggles than genuine remorse for years of exploitation. I declined to resume contact, but wished her well. She needed to find her own path without using others as stepping stones. Last I heard, she was working full-time and learning to budget for the first time in her life. The extended family eventually found new equilibrium. Those who'd seen the truth maintained distant but cordial relations with me. Others chose to believe my mother's version and cut contact. I was at peace with both outcomes. The family I'd tried so desperately to hold together had been a fantasy. The real connections that survived the truth were stronger for having weathered the storm. I learned that chosen family built on mutual respect and genuine care was worth more than blood relations based on obligation. 3 years have now passed since that phone call about Tyler's party. I own my condo outright after aggressive payments. My investment portfolio grows steadily without family raids depleting it. I take vacations without guilt, buy furniture without checking my bank balance anxiously, and donate to causes I choose rather than manufactured family crises. The emergency fund I'd never been able to maintain sits healthy and untouched, because real emergencies are rare when no one's creating them for profit. Tyler and I maintain a relationship through his father. At 13 now, he understands more about what happened and has asked thoughtful questions about family dynamics and financial boundaries. I've watched him grow into a kind, intelligent young man who thinks critically about the world around him. He recently told me he wants to be financially independent, so no one can manipulate him like his mom tried to do. The cycle is breaking with the next generation. My dating life, which had been non-existent while supporting my family, slowly improved. I met someone who understood boundaries and respected my journey. He had his own complicated family dynamics and appreciated my hard-won wisdom about financial boundaries. Together, we built a relationship based on equality and mutual support, not the transactional model I'd been taught. When we talked about marriage, we discussed how to handle family obligations, honestly ensuring neither of us would be exploited. Looking back, that $3,842.20 charge was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was so outrageous, so blatantly criminal that it shattered my denial about the family dynamics. Had they continued with smaller exploitations, I might have spent my entire life funding their wants while denying my own needs. The birthday party plot's audacity forced me to see what had always been there, hidden under guilt and manipulation. I keep a photo on my desk not of my biological family, but of the life I've built without them. It shows my condo, my genuine friends Tyler on a camping trip. His dad and I took him on Jerome at his graduation from trade school that he paid for himself, and Marcus's kids at my housewarming party. This is my real family, the people who see me as a person to love, not a resource to exploit. They celebrate my successes without calculating their cut. They offer support without keeping a balance sheet. The lesson I learned wasn't just about money, though financial boundaries are crucial. It was about recognizing that love doesn't demand sacrifice until you're depleted. Real family doesn't keep score or plan schemes. They don't vote on spending your money without your knowledge, or use children as manipulation tools. They celebrate your growth without resenting it. They ask for help when needed, but respect when you can't give. Most importantly, they see your worth beyond your wallet. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd paid for that party. Would they have been satisfied? Or would the demands have escalated as Marcus warned? I suspect I know the answer. The party would have been a success. Tyler would have been happy for a day, and within weeks the next crisis would have emerged. The cycle would have continued until I had nothing left to give, at which point they would have discarded me anyway. By saying no, I saved more than money. I saved myself. To anyone reading this who recognizes their own family in my story, know that you deserve better. The guilt you feel for having boundaries isn't because you're wrong. It's because you've been programmed to believe your worth comes from giving until it hurts. But love shouldn't hurt. Family shouldn't scheme. Support should flow both ways. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and them is to stop enabling dysfunction, even if they never understand or forgive you for it. My family voted that I pay $3,842.20 for a kid's party without telling me. But in doing so, they taught me the value of something priceless. They taught me that I was worth more than what I could provide. They taught me that no is a complete sentence. They taught me that family is about quality, not DNA. And most importantly, they taught me that the best investment I could ever make was in my own freedom and well-being. As we wrap up this story, I want to ask you all a question. Have you ever had family members who saw you as a bank rather than a person? How did you handle it? Drop your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content about surviving family dysfunction and building healthy boundaries. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with financial exploitation from family. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Until next time, stay strong and value yourself.